You don't belong here. Step back now. Officer Daniel Gregory's command cuts through the marble lobby as he blocks a black woman in a tailored navy blue suit from entering the courthouse. Before she can finish her sentence, he grabs her wrist. Officer, I'm Judge Martha Richardson. I have an inauguration in courtroom 4A. Martha's voice remains steady. Sure you are. Gregory locks eyes with his partner across the security checkpoint. Alan, we've got another one trying to talk her way in. Both officers move in simultaneously, seizing her arms and forcing her down. Her leather briefcase hits the polished floor, gold-embossed initials glinting as legal documents scatter across the marble. Courthouse staff stand frozen in the corridor, some with phones already raised, capturing the moment two officers slam a federal judge to her knees. Martha doesn't fight back. She doesn't raise her voice. She simply holds her head high as two sworn officers treat her like a threat in the very building where she was supposed to take her oath that morning. Before we continue, please like and share. Tell us where in the world you are watching from. If this story about dignity moves you, subscribe for more stories of justice restored. 6 months later, Daniel Gregory walks to the witness stand like a man who's done this 100 times before. His uniform is press sharp, his posture military straight, his voice clear and unwavering as he raises his right hand. The federal courtroom is standing room only. Journalists line the back wall. Courthouse staff fill the gallery. Everyone wants to see how this plays out. Gregory settles into the wooden chair and meets the prosecutor's eyes without flinching. He's been coached well. Officer Gregory, can you describe the events of the morning in question? Yes, ma'am. I was assigned to lobby security that day, covering the early shift. Around 8:47 a.m., an unidentified individual approached the security checkpoint. He pauses, letting the words sink in. Unidentified individual. Not a woman. Not a professional. Just an individual. The person was acting suspiciously. Evasive body language. Refusing to make proper eye contact with security personnel. And what happened next? I approached to conduct a standard screening. The individual claimed to have business in the building, but refused to properly identify herself when requested. Gregory shifts forward slightly, warming to his narrative. I observed furtive movements toward her bag. In my 15 years of law enforcement experience, I recognize this as a potential security threat. When I asked her to step aside for additional screening, she became physically resistant. The prosecutor nods, making notes. Can you elaborate on physically resistant? She pulled away from me. Aggressive posture. Raised voice. At that point, I had no choice but to secure the situation for the safety of everyone in that building. My partner and I used minimal necessary force to escort her outside the secure perimeter. Minimal necessary force. The phrase hangs in the courtroom air like smoke. Officer Marie Allen takes the stand next. She's younger than Gregory, less polished, but her story matches his perfectly. Too perfectly. Every pause lands in the same place. Every phrase echoes his testimony. Officer Allen, did your partner follow proper security protocols that morning? Absolutely. To the letter. Allen's voice carries conviction. We're trained to identify threats quickly. The individual was demonstrating multiple red flags. When Officer Gregory attempted to de-escalate, she escalated instead. We had a responsibility to protect that courthouse. And you witnessed her become physically resistant. Yes. She tried to pull away from Officer Gregory's lawful detention. She refused to comply with direct orders. We had every legal right to remove her from the premises. Allen looks at the jury as she speaks, her expression earnest. She believes her own story, or she's convinced herself she does. The defense attorney stands. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor. In the gallery, a woman in a gray suit sits perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable. No one pays her much attention. Not yet. The prosecution attorney rises slowly, a slim folder tucked under her arm. She approaches the witness stand where Gregory still sits, his confidence from moments ago beginning to show hairline fractures. Officer Gregory, you testified that you requested identification from Ms. Richardson, correct? That's correct. Before or after you grabbed her wrist? Gregory blinks. I asked her to identify herself when she approached. The attorney opens her folder, pulls out a single sheet. I have the security checkpoint log from that morning. Every ID check is recorded with a timestamp. Can you point to where your request for Ms. Richardson's identification appears? Silence stretches across the courtroom. Gregory leans forward, scanning a page. His finger hovers over the paper, but doesn't land anywhere. It must not have been logged properly. Must not have been. The attorney's voice stays neutral. Or perhaps it never happened. Officer Gregory, how long did you observe Ms. Richardson before deciding she was a threat? I followed my training. I assessed the situation. How long? 5 minutes? 2 minutes? I don't recall exactly. Let me help you remember. She pulls out another document. In your incident report filed that afternoon, you wrote that you identified suspicious behavior immediately upon visual contact. How long is immediately, officer? Gregory shifts in his chair. 3 to 5 seconds. 3 to 5 seconds. She lets the words settle. So you decided a professionally dressed woman carrying a briefcase was a security threat before she spoke a single word? Based on her demeanor, yes. Her demeanor. What specifically about her demeanor suggested she was dangerous? Gregory opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. She looked like she didn't belong. The courtroom stills. Someone in the gallery coughs. The attorney moves to Officer Allen next, who takes the stand with less assurance than her partner. Her hands grip the armrests. Officer Allen, Ms. Richardson told you and your partner she was a judge with business in courtroom 4A, correct? She made that claim, yes. And you have a radio. Every security officer does. Yes. Why didn't you radio courtroom 4A to verify her claim? Allen's jaw tightens. We were handling an active security situation. It would have taken 10 seconds. One radio call. You could have confirmed her identity before putting your hands on her. The attorney pauses. Why didn't you? I didn't think it was necessary. You didn't think it was necessary to verify that the woman you were about to assault wasn't exactly who she said she was? We don't verify every claim people make, but you do verify some claims. The security log shows you radioed upstairs 4 times that same week to confirm visitor identities. The attorney slides another document across the stand. 4 times for other people, but not for Ms. Richardson. Can you explain why? Allen stares at the paper. Her mouth works, but no sound comes out. No further questions. The prosecution calls Martha Richardson to the stand. A woman rises from the 3rd row of the gallery. She's wearing a gray suit, simple and elegant. Her natural hair pulled back in a low bun. She walks to the front of the courtroom with the kind of quiet dignity that makes people sit up straighter in their seats. Her heels click softly against the polished floor. When she raises her right hand to take the oath, her voice is steady and clear. Please state your name for the record. Martha Elizabeth Richardson. Ms. Richardson, can you describe what happened on the morning of your assault? Martha takes a breath, her hands folded neatly in her lap. I arrived at the federal courthouse at 8:43 a.m. I was early because I had an important professional obligation in courtroom 4A at 9 o'clock. I entered through the main entrance carrying my briefcase. I was wearing professional attire. She pauses, her gaze level. Before I reached the metal detector, Officer Gregory stepped directly into my path. What did he say? He asked where I thought I was going. I responded that I was Judge Martha Richardson and that I had business in courtroom 4A. He told me I didn't belong there. What happened next? I attempted to retrieve my judicial identification from my briefcase to clarify any confusion. Officer Gregory grabbed my wrist before my hand reached the bag. He told me not to reach for anything. Within seconds, Officer Allen had my other arm. They forced me backward. Martha's voice doesn't waver, but something in her eyes shifts. A memory playing behind them. Can you describe what that felt like? My knees hit the marble first. The impact was immediate, sharp. I heard my briefcase hit the floor beside me. The sound of papers scattering. Legal documents I'd prepared for weeks spreading across the lobby. She stopped, swallows. I could see people watching. Courthouse staff I would be working alongside. Attorneys I'd known for years. Some had their phones out, recording. No one intervened. Did you resist the officers? No. I stated my name and position clearly. I remained calm. I did everything you're supposed to do when confronted by law enforcement. Her jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. It didn't matter. Why do you think it didn't matter? The defense attorney starts to object, but Martha answers before he can finish standing. Because they'd already decided who I was the moment they saw me. Not by my credentials. Not by my words. By something else entirely. The courtroom is silent. Even the court reporter has stopped typing, fingers frozen above the keys. They treated me like a criminal in my own courthouse. In the building where I was supposed to take my oath that morning. Martha's voice remains measured, precise. They made that decision in 3 to 5 seconds. The lights dim. A projector hums to life, casting blue-white light across the courtroom wall. The prosecution attorney holds a remote control, her expression grim. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to present security footage from the 6 months preceding Ms. Richardson's assault. The first video plays. Date stamp, March 15th, 8:32 a.m. A black man in a dress shirt and tie approaches the checkpoint, a courthouse ID badge hanging visibly from a lanyard around his neck. Officer Gregory steps forward immediately, hand raised. Dr. Lawrence Bennett, court psychologist, the attorney narrates. Watch what happens. On screen, Gregory blocks Bennett's path despite the visible ID. His mouth moves, demanding something. Bennett points to his badge, confusion clear on his face. Gregory isn't satisfied. He calls Allen over. They detain Bennett for additional screening, going through his briefcase item by item while other visitors stream past. The attorney clicks to the next video. April 3rd, 9:15 a.m. A Latina woman in a sharp blazer approaches, holding up a federal prosecutor's badge before she even reaches the checkpoint. The badge is clearly visible, gold and official. It doesn't matter. Allen intercepts her, gesturing toward the side. The woman's mouth forms words the silent video can't capture, but her frustration is evident. She's pulled aside for pat-down screening while her badge sits in a plastic tray. Maria Delgado, federal prosecutor, the attorney says quietly. She works in this building 5 days a week. Click. Another video. And another. The pattern emerges like a photograph developing in chemical solution. Black professionals stopped, questioned, delayed. Latino attorneys pulled aside for additional screening. All of them credentialed. All of them professionally dressed. All of them treated like threats. Then the attorney switches to different footage. Same checkpoint. Same officers. Same time period. A white man in jeans and a t-shirt walks through. Gregory glances up from his phone, waves him on. No ID check visible. A white woman in yoga pants, carrying a gym bag. Allen smiles at her, gestures her through without stopping. An older white man in wrinkled khakis, no visible identification. Gregory nods at him like greeting a neighbor. The man passes through without breaking stride. These are the same officers, the attorney says, letting the footage speak. Same checkpoint. Same protocols supposedly being followed. She clicks through more examples. The disparity is undeniable now, mathematical in its precision. White visitors flow through like water. Black and brown visitors are dammed up, questioned, searched, delayed. Gregory sits rigid at the defense table, his jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumps. Alan stares at her hands. The attorney freezes the final frame, a split screen showing Dr. Bennett detained on one side, a white man in casual clothes waving through on the other. Both images from the same morning, 15 minutes apart. This is the standard protocol. Officer Gregory testified about following to the letter. The prosecution attorney approaches the evidence table and lifts a small digital recorder. Your Honor, the courthouse security system includes audio monitoring in common areas, including the officer's break room. The following recordings were preserved as part of the routine security archive. She presses play. Static crackles through the courtroom speakers. Then voices emerge. Background noise of a coffee pot brewing, chairs scraping. 2 officers talking. Did you see the one trying to get into courtroom 6 yesterday? Gregory's voice, unmistakable. Casual. Relaxed. Said she was there for jury duty. They always say that. A pause. The sound of someone stirring coffee. I don't care what she says she does here. These people always lie about having business in the building. Someone in the gallery gasps. The attorney lets the recording continue. Alan's voice comes through next, lighter but just as clear. The judges need to stop letting them in for jury duty. It just creates problems. We spend half our shift dealing with people who don't belong. Tell me about it. The attorney stops the recording. Silence fills the courtroom like water filling a sinking ship. Gregory stares straight ahead, his face carved from stone. Alan has gone pale. That recording is from 3 weeks before Ms. Richardson's assault. The attorney picks up a second device. This next recording is from the day after. She presses play. The break room again. More voices this time, several officers on their lunch break. The clink of utensils, someone laughing about a football game. Then Gregory's voice cuts through. You should have seen her face when we put her on the floor. His tone is almost gleeful. She came in wearing this expensive suit, carrying some fancy briefcase. Talking about she's a judge. He laughs. She thought her little outfit would protect her. Someone else asks what happened. Gregory's voice again. We showed her where she actually belongs. On her knees. Laughter from multiple voices. Not Alan's. The recording makes that clear. But she doesn't object either. Doesn't interrupt. Doesn't say a word. The attorney stops the playback. The silence now is different. Heavier. Sickening. These recordings were made in a public break room on government property. Every word is admissible. She looks at the jury. These are the officers who claim they were simply following protocol, who testified they had no bias, who swore they treated Ms. Richardson the same way they treat anyone else. She sets the recorder down with deliberate care. These are their own words, their own voices, their own truth. Gregory's attorney objects, calls for the recordings to be stricken as prejudicial. The judge overrules him. The words have already been heard. They can't be unheard. In the gallery, someone starts crying softly. The prosecution attorney stands, her voice carrying across the hushed courtroom. Your Honor, the prosecution recalls Martha Richardson for clarification regarding her professional obligations on the morning of the assault. Martha rises from her seat in the gallery. The same gray suit. The same quiet composure. She walks down the center aisle, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Every eye in the courtroom follows her. She reaches the witness box and walks past it. Confusion ripples through the gallery. Someone whispers. The defense attorney half rises from his chair, uncertain. Martha continues forward, her path deliberate and unhurried, until she reaches the judge's bench, the elevated platform at the front of the courtroom where the presiding judge has sat empty throughout the entire trial. She climbs the steps, settles into the high-backed leather chair, adjusts the microphone. The courtroom explodes. Voices erupt from every direction. Reporters surge forward. The defense attorney is on his feet, shouting objections that can't be heard over the chaos. Jurors lean forward in their seats, faces ranging from shock to dawning comprehension. The bailiff pounds his gavel. Order. Order in the court. The noise subsides slowly, unwillingly, like floodwater receding. Martha sits perfectly still through it all, her hands folded on the polished wood surface, waiting. When silence finally returns, she leans toward the microphone. For the record, her voice fills the courtroom with quiet authority. I am the Honorable Judge Martha Elizabeth Richardson, United States Circuit Court Judge for this district. She pauses, letting the words land. On the morning of August 12th, I was en route to courtroom 4A, where my judicial inauguration ceremony was scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. I was prevented from attending that ceremony because Officers Gregory and Allen assaulted me in the courthouse lobby and forcibly removed me from the building. At the defense table, Gregory has gone absolutely still. His face has drained of all color, lips parted in frozen disbelief. Beside him, Allen grips the table edge so hard her knuckles have gone white. They're not just staring at a victim anymore. They're staring at a federal judge. The judge whose courtroom they've been sitting in. The judge who has heard every word of their testimony. Every lie. Every excuse. Every attempt to justify what they did to her. Martha's gaze moves to them now, steady and unwavering. I have presided over these proceedings from the moment they began. I have heard every testimony, reviewed every piece of evidence, and now we will continue. She looks to the prosecution attorney. Counsel, you may proceed with your clarification. The attorney smiles slightly. No further questions, Your Honor. The courtroom remains silent. No one moves. No one breathes. Gregory and Allen sit like statues, watching their entire defense crumble into dust. The defense attorney stands, his face flushed, grasping for anything that might save his clients. Your Honor, while we acknowledge Judge Richardson's position, my clients had no way of knowing her identity that morning. She wasn't wearing judicial robes. The inauguration hadn't occurred yet. They were simply doing their jobs. Counsel. Judge Richardson's voice cuts through his desperation like a blade. You may recall Officer Gregory for cross-examination. Gregory returns to the stand like a man walking to his execution. His earlier confidence has evaporated completely. He won't meet Richardson's eyes. The prosecution attorney approaches with a document. Officer Gregory, Judge Richardson's appointment was publicly announced on July 20th. 3 weeks before the incident. Were you aware of this announcement? I may have heard something about it. May have. She holds up a printed email. This is from a courthouse administration, sent to all security personnel on August 10th, 2 days before the assault. It includes Judge Richardson's photograph, her biography, and explicit instructions to provide full courtesy and access on her inauguration day. Did you receive this email? Gregory shifts in his seat. We receive a lot of emails. Did you read this one? Silence stretches. Finally, no. You didn't read an email specifically instructing you on how to handle a new federal judge's arrival? I must have missed it. The attorney walks to the evidence board, where a poster-sized photograph is displayed. Judge Richardson's official portrait that had been posted in the courthouse lobby. This photograph was displayed in the main lobby for 3 weeks. You passed it every day on your way to your shift. Did you ever look at it? I don't pay attention to every poster. This wasn't a bake sale announcement, officer. This was the face of a new federal judge who would be working in your building. She pauses. But you never looked. Not once in 3 weeks. Officer Allen is recalled next. She takes the stand reluctantly, her hands trembling. Officer Allen, you received the same email as your partner? Yes. Did you read it? I opened it. Did you look at Judge Richardson's photograph? Alan's voice drops to barely a whisper. No. Why not? I assumed all the judges were already known to me. I didn't think we'd have any new ones. The attorney lets that sit for a moment. You didn't think there would be new judges, so you didn't bother to learn what they looked like. Alan says nothing. The attorney turns back to Gregory. Officer Gregory, one final question. You had multiple opportunities that morning to verify Judge Richardson's identity. You chose not to. Why? Gregory stares at his hands. The courtroom waits. Officer Gregory, answer the question. His voice comes out rough, defeated. I didn't think she looked like a judge. What does a judge look like, officer? He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The answer is written all over his face. The jury files out at 3:47 p.m. The courtroom settles into tense waiting. Reporters text updates. Gregory and Alan sit rigid at the defense table, not looking at each other, not looking at anyone. At 4:39 p.m., 52 minutes later, the bailiff's voice rings out. All rise. The jury has reached a verdict. The jury files back in, their faces carefully neutral. The foreperson, a middle-aged woman in a cardigan, stands with a folded piece of paper in her hands. Judge Richardson nods to her. Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of deprivation of civil rights under color of law against defendant Daniel Gregory, how do you find? Guilty. The word lands like a physical blow. Gregory's head drops forward. On the charge of assault against defendant Daniel Gregory, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights, guilty. The foreperson continues through every count. Alan receives the same verdict on every charge. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The words pile up like stones on a grave. When it's finished, Gregory's attorney requests immediate appeal. Judge Richardson denies it. The bailiff leads both defendants away in handcuffs. Alan is crying. Gregory stares straight ahead, his face empty. 2 weeks later, the courtroom fills again for sentencing. Every seat is taken. News cameras line the hallway outside, forbidden from entering but waiting for the aftermath. Judge Richardson enters, wearing her judicial robes, now, the ones she should have worn that morning 6 months ago. She takes her seat at the bench and looks down at the two defendants standing before her. This case is not about personal vengeance, she begins, her voice steady and clear. It is about preserving the integrity of our justice system. When those sworn to protect that system violate it instead, they don't just harm their victims. They harm every person who must trust that justice is blind, that the law applies equally, that their rights mean something. She looks directly at Gregory. Officer Gregory, you had 15 years to learn better. You chose not to. You are sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You are permanently barred from any position in law enforcement, security, or positions of public trust. Gregory's jaw tightens, but he says nothing. Judge Richardson turns to Alan. Officer Allen, you are sentenced to 15 months in federal prison with the same supervised release conditions and employment restrictions. She pauses, letting the weight settle. Both of you will complete comprehensive bias training during your incarceration, though you will never again have the privilege of wearing a badge. You took an oath to serve and protect. You broke that oath the moment you decided who deserved protection based on the color of their skin. The gavel falls. 1 year later, the federal courthouse lobby looks the same. Same marble floors. Same security checkpoint. Same high ceilings that echo with footsteps and conversation. But something fundamental has changed. Every security officer now wears a body camera that activates automatically during any interaction lasting more than 30 seconds. A digital display mounted near the entrance shows real-time security statistics, stops conducted, average duration, demographic breakdown, transparency built into the system itself. This is the Richardson Judicial Security Protocol, now implemented in all 94 federal districts across the country. Annual bias training for all security personnel. Mandatory verification of professional credentials before any detention. Immediate disciplinary review for any stop exceeding 2 minutes without documented cause. The protocol bears her name, but Judge Richardson doesn't see it as a monument. She sees it as a beginning. She stands at a lectern at Harvard Law School, addressing a packed auditorium of future lawyers and judges. Dignity isn't granted by a robe or a title, she tells them. It's inherent. The moment we forget that, we stop serving justice and start serving our own biases. Students lean forward, taking notes, recording her words. She's become something she never sought, a national figure, invited to speak at law schools and judicial conferences across the country. Her calendar is filled with speaking engagements about accountability, reform, and the price of silence. But she still presides over her courtroom in that same federal building, still walks through that same lobby every morning, still sees that marble floor. Now, mounted on the wall near the entrance, a bronze plaque catches the morning light. On this floor, August 12th, justice failed. Through accountability and reform, justice was restored. May we never forget that the integrity of our system depends on the dignity we afford to every person who enters these halls. Across town, in a sprawling storage facility on the edge of the industrial district, Daniel Gregory makes his rounds. Night watchman, minimum wage, no badge, no authority, just a flashlight and a clipboard, checking locks on units filled with people's forgotten belongings. His 15 years in law enforcement mean nothing here. His uniform is a plain gray shirt with a name tag. In a grocery store on the south side, Marie Allen stocks shelves during the overnight shift. Canned goods, cereal boxes, endless rows of products that need to be faced forward, labels out. Her pension is gone. Her career is gone. She works in silence, avoiding eye contact with customers, avoiding conversation with coworkers. Both of them made choices that morning in the courthouse lobby. Choices that seemed easy at the time, instinctive, justified. Now they live with the consequences. And in courtrooms across America, security officers check their bias, verify credentials, and remember that dignity isn't determined by appearance. Justice, it turns out, can learn.